Just a few words to thank you for coming. When I started reading the book, after a couple of pages, I stopped. I closed my eyes and I said, "They have to read it." Students have to read it because I thought she has to come. She has to come. So I'm closing my eyes, please. Open up. And here she is. and thank you very much. She's been traveling miles and miles away around the globe in her life. She's had several lives. And she's been traveling miles to see you. Please have a warm welcome for Tawni Waters, writer. Please.
I'm so honored to be here. When I saw what you guys have done in the hallway, I almost cried. It is beautiful. And your paintings and your drawings are gorgeous. I'm stunned. So thank you so much. And France was already, I have traveled much of the world, and France is my favorite country, hands down. I always tell my kids we're going to move here someday, and now I have fallen in love with La Rochelle. It's such a beautiful place, and if I hadn't already, when I walked through the door and saw all of you and everything you had done, I would have fallen in love. You're wonderful. So thank you. And I'm delighted that you guys read Beauty of the Broken. You're the only school that I've worked with that read that book. So I'm excited. And while I've been here, I got a translator who is going to translate it into French. So soon you'll be able to buy it in French. Do you want to translate?
Est-ce que vous avez besoin de traduction? Est-ce que ça dépendra? Can you just raise your hands when you think you're not sure you want some kind of translation? Shall we do that? Okay, just raise your hands and then Tawni will start and then okay.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life, or a lot bit about my life. I went into exile at a young age. No, I'm not kidding. When I was very, very small, I was 4 years old, my parents moved me to a mountain in New Mexico, and there was one other family on our side of the mountain. So we were very, very isolated. We had no television, no radio, just our little family and the one family that was a few miles away, and books. We had tons and tons of books. And my parents were incredibly loving, intelligent people. And the best part of my whole day was at night when my daddy would sit me in his lap and read to me for hours and hours. That was like my watching television, was my daddy reading to me. And then he would tuck me in at night, and I fell in love with books because of these experiences I had with them at a young age. And my brother and I, there was a hippie commune. Do you know what hippies are? There was a hippie commune nearby, and the hippies were gone, but they left behind their library. So my brother and I would go borrow books from their library, which we never took back, and just read. We read all of the time. And I decided when I was very small, as soon as I could pick up a pen, I started trying to write books. And I decided when I grew up, I was going to be a writer, an actor, and a singer. And I stayed with those dreams all the way through school. I got perfect grades. I took acting lessons and started being in plays. I even became a beauty queen. I was Miss New Mexico National Teen because I thought it would help me with my acting career, which I do not recommend now. I think it's ridiculous for girls to be judged for their beauty, but it was a long time ago. And I also sold my very first story that I ever sent out when I was 18. I sold it for $1,000. So I thought that being a writer was going to be really, really easy. And I was wrong, and started writing again, and I entered a writing contest, and I won the writing contest. And so they had this big banquet for me, and a newspaper was there, and the newspaper ended up interviewing me, and then they liked me so much they gave me a job. So that was my very first writing job. And I met a pilot at this banquet, and I ended up marrying him a year later. So all of a sudden, the girl who lived on the mountain and had never left it, I did travel a little with my parents 1 year when I was little, but other than that, we were always on the mountain. All of a sudden, I could see the whole world, and I did. I started traveling, and I went all over. This is me, the one on the left is me in Malta, that's me in Spain, that's me. But I also felt like when I traveled, I took an emotional and spiritual journey. I started feeling like the travel was healing all the broken places inside of me. So I started using travel as a way to understand myself and a way to heal myself. And I also started writing like crazy. That's when I started writing this novel. This novel was written mostly on airplanes. I would write it when I was flying from one place to another. And I also went back to the other thing I promised myself when I was a little girl. I became an actor. And I was in about 20 plays, and I say here, as I look at these photos, I realize I strangled people more than is probably healthy, but these were some of the plays that I was in. And the pilot and I eventually divorced. Apparently I'm not very good at being married, but he wasn't a horrible person or anything. We just made better friends than married people. And I went back to school and got a master's degree in fiction because I had tried to sell this novel and nobody wanted it. Every publisher in America said no. So I figured I had more to learn about writing, so I got a master's degree in writing in a program that I could travel. So I studied in Spain and I studied 2 years in Mexico for that. And I started following a rock band, which sounds crazy, but I saw this band over 1,000 times, and I followed them all over the U.S. I saw them in every state in the U.S. except Alaska, and I saw them all over the U.K. and Mexico, and the music was, I don't know if you guys feel this way about music, but music to me is the most powerful art form there is. There is something so, it changes you. It helps you to understand who you are. It helps you to feel the world around you. And so this music became something that started to heal me. And I was traveling while I was doing it, so I was engaging in two of the things that I love the most. And all of this sounds lovely and fun. But these years were actually somewhat difficult, even though all of these beautiful things were happening, because I found that when I made this choice to start living the things that I had dreamed of doing, other people were not happy. People don't like it when you leave your husbands. People don't like it when you decide that you're just going to go and travel all over the world and follow rock bands. And a lot of people told me I was crazy. A lot of people told me, your writing's not selling. It was a nice little dream, but it's never going to happen. Get a real job. It was very difficult to keep the courage to keep living. Finally, over 20 years after I sent out that first story, I sold this book to Simon & Schuster, which is one of the biggest publishers in America. And I, of course, dedicated it to my parents because I promised myself when I published a book it was going to be dedicated to my father. And I ended up winning some huge awards for this novel, including the ILA, which you guys have probably never heard of, but is one of the biggest awards in America. And my life changed completely. My dream came true. And I'm so glad I didn't give up. And this life that I am living now is even better than the one that I dreamed could be possible when I decided I wanted to be a writer. And so I guess that's why I told you all of this about myself. I want you to know that whatever you have inside of you, that thing that you feel you were born to do, that thing that you love so much you can't stop doing it, That's the smartest part of you telling you why you're on this planet. Listen to it. No matter how hard it gets, no matter what other people say, just keep going. Because if you don't give up, your dreams can come true. And I've published 2 more books now, Siren Song and The Long Ride Home. And I do a lot of interviews on the radio. I travel everywhere signing my books. That picture with me going like this is me getting a box full of my books, which is one of the most exciting things a person can experience. And I get to do research for my novels. The Long Ride Home is about a girl riding a motorcycle across the U.S. So I rode a motorcycle, but full disclosure, I only rode it around the parking lot. But I look really cool in the picture, right? But a guy took me out. He drove and I rode behind him, and we drove all day so I would understand how it feels to ride a motorcycle. And I get put in magazines sometimes, but I'm mostly showing you this picture so you can see my dog. This is Isis, and I have another Chihuahua named Rock, and they live with my daughter now that I live on the road, but I love them very much. So there's me with a duck. It turns out weird little girls' dreams do come true. Sometimes it just takes a little time. This duck's dreams came true the moment he escaped my grasp, seconds after this photo was taken. So that's all I have to tell you about me. And your teacher tells me, or teachers tell me, that you have questions for me. So I am ready and willing to answer any questions you have.
What do you want to say now to all the people who did not believe in you? And in your eye, what do you want to say to them?
Oh, I wish I could say something noble. I can be really petty. Have you ever heard that song, When You See My Face, I Hope It Gives You Hell, I Hope It Gives You Hell? It's an American song about a man who has gotten famous, and all the people that didn't believe him. He's basically saying, nanny, nanny, boo-boo, look at me, I'm famous. I hope you're really upset by that. I posted that on my Facebook right after I sold my book. So I think that's what I want to say. And they all tried to be my friend after that. That was one of the most upsetting things. I didn't find it like inspiring. I found it really insulting. Like all of these people who hated me. I was not a cool kid in high school. Like I was raised on this mountain and then I got bused to a nearby high school. So everybody made fun of me and hated me. And then as soon as I started selling books, they all started like, oh my God, I love you so much. Remember when we were in high school together? Yeah, you were sticking my head in the toilet. Of course I remember. So I hated it. I found that very insulting. Like, they're too stupid to remember how they treated me. Beauty of the Broken took forever to write. I started it in 1996. And I sold it in 2013, and I was working on it on and off all that time. I worked on it during my master's degree program, so 15 years, I would say. That's a lot of work.
And why did you want to write a book between love and dogma?
Because I think love and dogma, we think that there are like wars of ideas going on. Like we think that it's Islam versus Christianity, or it's conservatives versus liberals, or it's, there are all these things that we think are against each other, but I think there are only 2 things in the world that are really against each other. I think there is love and there is hate, or fear. And hate and fear are usually wrapped up in dogma. We decide, I don't like gay people because they scare me. I don't understand that, so they're evil. And you create this hatred and this fear and this dogma surrounding them. And those are really the only 2 things that are at work against each other in the world. If you come at your religion from a loving perspective, you're not going to feel hatred towards the person that has a religion that's different than yours. If you come at your politics from a loving perspective, you're not going to feel hatred and fear towards people that are different than you. So I think those are the two things. I think that if we can get to a place where we love whatever we believe, the world will be a really beautiful place. But if we can't, then we're in trouble. I mean, the world is not in a good place right now. Does that answer your question? Yeah. All right. Yes.
Will you write Lycée Valin too?
I have.
You mean
been
a sequel?
asked
A
that.
sequel.
Yes.
Ensuite.
People ask me that all the time. I get letters all the time asking me to do that, and even my agent really wants me to do it. I haven't tried because to me I don't feel inspired, and I don't know what I would do. Like people ask me about the ending all the time. They don't know if Mara makes it to Zilia or not. In my mind, she does. I was hoping that that moment where she imagines Zilia outside the door with the flower in her hair, I was hoping people would know that was real, but apparently I was more subtle than I thought I was, and people don't know. I see her making it to Zilia, but then I just wonder what I would do, like Zilia and Mara take San Francisco, like I'm not quite sure how I would do that. So if it ever comes to me, I've thought about doing like an offshoot with Henry, the Native American character.
Henry est l'ami indien de Mara, qui, pour ceux qui connaissent l'histoire, est accusé à tort de son agression, parce qu'elle était en délire et c'est lui qui l'a sauvée. Mais elle disait son nom pendant ce délire, à l'hôpital, etc. Il est accusé de l'avoir donc violée, alors qu'il l'a sauvée. Mais c'est par Henry que viendrait éventuellement une ouverture d'une suite, un autre épisode de cette vie de Mara. Through Henry, he would open up.
Yes, and I have already, actually, nobody knows, or most people don't know this. When I sent this to my agent, it was twice as long, and half of the chapters were from Henry's point of view. So I already have a bunch of Henry's perspective, but my agent didn't like Henry. And then when my publisher got it, I went to lunch with her, and she said, I love this book so much, but you know what I wish you would have done? I wish we had more Henry. I was like, darn it.
Vous avez compris là tout à l'heure?
Why didn't the mother react in the first chapter after her son had been beaten and tied? He became mentally handicapped.
Why didn't she react? Because sadly, I'm glad that none of you have ever seen it, but there are mothers who will do this. I've known children of mothers like this, and I've known people, several of my friends that I saw do this. They would choose the abusive man over the child, and they would allow the abuse to happen and turn a blind eye to it and pretend it wasn't going on. And I guess in my novels, I know they're hard to read, but I want to talk about things that really happen. And as ugly as this is, it happens to people. And I've taught in America, I've spoken at schools where people have come up to me and said, you wrote my life. That's how my childhood was. So it gives people who have experienced this a feeling of being less alone in the world, and it gives those of us who have not, I think, more compassion for people who have experienced things like this. So that's why. Does that answer your question?
Is there some things in the book that comes from your own experience?
There are certainly aspects, I mean, nothing is a direct translation. Aspects of Mara's experiences, the way that she's treated at school, I definitely experienced that. I've actually been raped, so some of the reactions she has to the rape come out there. And growing up in that small town, if you came to where I live, to the town nearby, it's that town. Everybody that's from there says, oh, you wrote Edgewood. So there are definitely experiences. The preacher is a preacher that I saw preaching at a church who was screaming horrible, horrible things about gay people from the front of the church. And it was so upsetting to me that I put that character in this book. So yeah, there are definitely real life experiences in there. Good question, thank you. These are the best questions I've gotten. You guys are wonderful. Yes.
Garance?
It's a simple question, but can you tell us about your writing process and the way you brainstorm story ideas?
Certainly. I did this one like I told you. I said if anyone wants to talk to me, start talking. And that's often what I do, but it's not what a lot of writers I know do. I find if I plan too much, the writing isn't very good. But if I just sort of let myself be open, have a glass of wine, and try to write, or just let myself get really relaxed and see what comes out, it comes out better. But then, I said I took 15 years to write this. Well, I had a draft of it after like 2 years. So a lot of the time that I spend writing is time going back and editing and changing things. And, well, you can see that she grows up in a little town in New Mexico. So that was, the town itself is inspired by a town that was close to the mountain that I grew up on. I saw a lot of really vicious behavior by people who were very religious, and that was very upsetting to me. My family was nothing like this family, thank God. But I did know people who grew up in families like this, and so I'd seen these sorts of behaviors. This book appeals most of the time to teens that are going through things like this. So my publisher and my agent and I decided to put a list of resources for people that might be going through one of the things that's addressed in the novel. Thank you. Well, yes. She asked if I would like one of my books to be adapted to the cinema. In fact, this is. I have a screenwriter. Have you heard of the movie Sleepless in Seattle? It's a big movie in the U.S. The screenwriter of that movie wrote me a letter. He read my book and loved it, so he wrote me, and we started talking, and he finally decided, after he saw the performance that's on your televisions in the hallway, he saw that performance, and he said, I have to make this into a movie. So he's working on making it into a movie now.
What broken means to you, since it's written quite a lot in the novel?
What does broken mean to me? I think we are all broken in some way. I think that we're all flawed, and we live in a world that tries to tell us that we have to be perfect, to be beautiful, and they tell us to change our faces and change our hair, change our bodies, and get perfect grades and be perfectly kind, and I think there's something inherently beautiful in the flaws, in the broken places in us, the pieces of us that aren't perfect. So that's what broken means to me. It's the beauty of imperfection. But broken sounds better. Did you have a question?
Your book,
Oh, do you like the adaptation, the movie?
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. He told me he was going to have a first draft to me this month, but I think I will. One of the reasons I let him do it is I love his work, and I trust him, and he's so in love with the work. I think that he will.
I'm sorry because it is not going to be about the book. But, what are your best musical inspiration? The musicians you love
My
the
favorite
most?
musicians?
Yes.
The band that I followed is always going to be my favorite, called Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers. Do you guys know Tom Petty's music?
We'll take note. We'll take note.
Take notes.
We'll let them know.
They're similar to Tom Petty, and Tom Petty is also one of my favorites. I love Prince. He's been one of my favorites for many years. I love, if you've been to my website, you've heard a song on there by a band called Vintage Trouble. I love them. I actually, their drummer is one of my clients, so we've become really good friends, but he's writing a novel and I'm helping him to write it.
This is a track you can listen to on the video down the road. This is Vintage Trouble. The track is...
It's called It's Not All Right by Me. Yes. I'm trying to think of others. I love music and my brain is like not giving me any other... Johnny Cash? Do you know Johnny Cash?
Yes.
Yes, I love Johnny Cash. What are your favorites?
Your favorite?
What's your favorite?
My, it isn't a band. It is a singer called Sia.
Oh, yeah. I know music. Yes, I love it.
That is my favorite one.
Yes, definitely. Good question. Thank you. Yes.
Was your book translate another language? No.
Has it been translated in any other language?
It hasn't. Although
Not yet.
now, after this trip, I think it will be translated into French. So you'll be able to read it in your own language. I did a translation joust. Do they
Il
know
y a
what
une
this is?
joute, une bataille de traduction au lycée Dauté la semaine dernière.
Um,
Deux traducteurs professionnels ont proposé un extrait de ce second roman de la Long Ride Home, un passage pas si facile. Et la rencontre avec Tawni et Olivier Lebleu, qui est traducteur professionnel, a fait que presque décidé qu'il traduira désormais The Beauty, The Long Ride Home,
no,
The
Beauty
Beauty.
of the Broken.
Voilà,
Yes.
vous pourrez le lire en français bientôt, si c'est Olivier Lebleu qui le traduit, son éditeur américain. Lola?
Do you prefer writing poems or novels?
I don't know. If I had to choose one, I'd probably stick with novels, but I love writing poems as well. I write them for different reasons. My poetry is much more like about me and what I'm going through. Even if I write about a lot of goddesses in my poetry, but it's always some manifestation of my own emotions. Novels to me are bigger than that. I write about bigger issues and things that are further away, I guess not that far away from myself. This is about a girl that gets pregnant and her parent dies, so clearly I'm writing about some of my life experiences, but I still feel like they're bigger issues. If I want to just get something off my chest, I write it as a poem. So they're different, but I don't know if I like one more. Good question. Thank you. Yes.
Do you have a special time of the day when you write most? Like you encountered the Tunisian writer and he actually told us that he was writing most of the time at the night because it was more inspiring for him. So
Right. Good question. I travel all the time. I don't even have a house anymore. I live on the road. So I write when I can. Like sometimes I'm writing at a rest stop. I've written poems in porta potties at rock concerts. But I'm writing a book of poems now called So Speak the Stars. And that's because almost all of them are written at night. I write better at night most of the time. But I don't have a regular schedule. But some people need that. I love writing so much, I can't not write. So I don't need to force myself to do it. I don't have to have a schedule. I will write. If you take me out to dinner, I'll probably be trying really hard not to pick up a napkin and scribble poems. So that's how I do it.
Someone else wanted to
How
ask.
can you explain the emotional reactions of readers for this story, which is very
Deep reactions of people that are reading the
Yeah.
story. Yeah, I know that the reactions are pretty intense, and the weird thing is I'm a really happy person. I don't know why my writing is so difficult to read, but I guess I want to write something that affects people, that changes them, I hope, in some way by reading it. And I know that the way to touch people is to touch them emotionally. So I try to write things that will be emotional. This isn't nearly as hard to read as this. This is much darker. This is the violence in this is much more intense than the violence in this. There's in fact no violence in this. Yeah, it's just trying to write truth. So does that answer your question? Or not?
Traveling, according to you, traveling is a good way for you to create, to find ideas, to find a trigger.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it is. Because I notice when I don't know if everybody's this way, but when I'm in the same place, I stop noticing things. You're just sort of going through the motions because you know what's around you, you know what to do. When you're dropped into a place where you don't know the language, you don't understand the culture, not on a very basic level like you do in your own culture, you don't know the food, you don't know anything, you have to notice. You notice things and you have these experiences that are brand new that you would never have at home. So always, yeah, when I'm in a new place, I get triggered like crazy. I can't stop writing usually. Even if it's work for a novel that has nothing to do with that place, I'll have emotions that will play into the novel.
Have you been writing while staying in Laos in Centre Internement? Have you been writing?
Yeah, I've written a lot. I'm working on a novel and on some of the poems for my poetry book, so Speech for Stars.
How did you choose the title Beauty of the Broken?
Beauty of the Broken. I would love to say I chose that title. I did not. My editor chose it. I called this book Handful of Dust because at the beginning of the book, she and Iggy are lying under the porch and the dust is coming down and they're trying to catch the handfuls. But my editor didn't like that, so she came up with this, and I think it's a way better title. She did better than I did. Yes.
Madame Menon, est-ce que vous pouvez traduire juste handful of dust?
Une poignée de poussière.
Waiting for the father and she tried to grab the dust in the light, isn't it?
Right,
Yeah,
yes. When she, because, yeah, that moment where she and Iggy join hands to try to catch the dust, to me that's the essence of the story.
Yeah, this is deeply connected with the trees.
Right.
So it's
Yes.
well.
Yeah. Yes.
Perhaps, I'm sure you'd like to have some photos and show Tawni your work. Some people have been drawing and painting. Thank you to Laurence, the art teacher. She accepted because it was part of it was not part of the class first. And then she got caught on. Well, with Tawni.
Well, thank you so much, because that is one of the most beautiful.
And then we'll go, you show her the exhibition, yeah. Oh yeah, I think, yeah. Oh. Shall we say thank you to Tawni? Anyway, thanks. It's been a very long interview.